Let's bring in Wright Thompson. I thought he did a great job, had access to Michael Jordan, ESPN.com, ESPN, the magazine. And Michael Jordan has not left the building. It seems like he's a prisoner of his own success in reading what Wright Thompson wrote, and he joins us now. How would you weigh in on that poll question, Wright?
Well, I mean, I guess in the most macro sense, I would rather have Jordan's life because I really want a Gulfstream. But, I understand what you're saying because Jordan is in the unique position where, first of all, it beats working in a coal mine, so we shouldn't say, oh, woe is him. But every single trait inside of him that made him perfectly suited for the first part of his life, in some comic twist of the universe, is almost the exact wrong series of traits to be able to do whatever might come next. And I think he struggled with that for a long time. You know, the people who work for him say that for the last 10 years he's been, just going as fast as he can, moving, trying to create distractions. And, he'll call them and say, the schedules are clear. Don't call me for a month. I'm going to play golf. And 3 days later, he'll be back on the phone saying, hey, send the plane to come pick me up. Let's go somewhere. And he's just restless. So I think that the thing that's actually happening now that I guess is the first step, although there's still many more steps to go, is he's self-aware enough to realize that, which is what, frankly, surprised me most of all when spending time with him.
Getting access to Jordan is not easy to do. How did you earn his trust that he was willing to let you eavesdrop on his conversations?
It was interesting. I had no previous relationship with him, none at all. And I don't know, I don't want to make the number up, but about a year ago probably, I started working through the architecture of his circle, to get to someone who could say yes or no. And, writing letters and talking to him and basically just saying, I want to watch and write about what his life is like today. And, part of me was a little baffled they said yes, but they did. And I went in, and it's interesting because I've always heard he was difficult to talk to, but, I asked, the actual sit-down interview part of it took, 3.5 hours, and I asked him very personal, pointed questions. I asked everything I could think of to ask, and he was open to talk about virtually everything, and then we just hung out the rest of the time.
But what was it that you came away with, if you were going to put a headline on it, other than the headline you used,
Yeah.
but what's the one thing that you didn't know or that people would like to know?
The thing that I came away with was that here is someone who is actively engaged in the journey of trying to figure out what do you do after you've been Michael Jordan, and that he has thought about it. If he's never put it to himself that cleanly like I just did, he's certainly in the ballpark, and I was unbelievably fascinated by that. Mostly because, like you, I watched from the outside, and I just imagined him as having zero self-awareness, sort of stumbling through this post-retirement world with no idea about his impact on other people and how his presence affects other people, and I was surprised that wasn't true.
Were you there when he's cleaning out his Chicago place, and he was looking for 2 of his championship rings and couldn't find them?
No, I talked to him about that, and then the people who were in the house. I'm fascinated by that, but also because he didn't want to replace them. So, that's an interesting window into what these rings mean to people. It's not just that you can wear them. They have this almost, I don't know what the adjective version of the word talisman is, but they have this sort of power beyond their mere physical presence that cannot be replaced. And I don't know, I thought that was really interesting.
Is he happy?
I don't know. I think there are days when he's happy. I think he is happy in certain places. I think he is able to be happy. Because, there's some people who aren't able to be happy,
yep.
Who just can't. And I think he isn't one of those people. But I think many of those things we talked about at the top that were the traits that made him great at one thing are the exact same things that suck up that happiness or get in the way of it or deflect it or diminish it.
You got a chance to watch basketball with him, with his inner circle. What was that like?
It was very surreal because I've pretended to understand the triangle offense for a very long time and have no idea. I mean, at gunpoint, there was no way I could ever tell you what it means. So he was trying to explain it to me, and I think that the look of just stupidity on my face let him know it wasn't working. So it was just odd where he got my notebook and drew a basketball court and drew X's. He's like, all right, this is me, this is Scotty. And I'm just thinking, well, this is the oddest thing that's ever happened to me, where Michael Jordan is explaining the triangle offense to me on his balcony. This isn't a surprise. I mean, I'm sure if we watched a sports broadcast, television or radio with you, you would see things that other people don't see. So I'm not surprised by the fact that his insight was tremendous, but I've never watched basketball. I don't think I've ever watched basketball with a professional basketball player, much less one of, if not the greatest one who's ever lived. And so it was interesting to just see what he saw in the game. It was fascinating.
But he can't go to sleep. He needs noise. People can't leave until he tells people that they can leave, that he doesn't want to be alone.
Well, he doesn't like to be alone. The saddest thing to me in the piece is that the thing he would do with his father, with James Jordan, is watch old Westerns. And he loves Western movies. And they watch them constantly, and he can quote them to you. And, cowboy movies and shootouts, and has a list of his favorites and knows trivia. Somebody who works for him was joking that she'd rather fly commercial than on his Gulfstream, because when you get on his plane, that's what he wants to watch. And every night before he goes to sleep, he turns on the DirecTV or whatever the cable thing is,
it's DirecTV. Yeah, it's DirecTV.
Turns on the Western channel and falls asleep watching cowboy movies. And just the poignancy of that, I mean, it gets me every single time I think about it.
It was great. You did well, right? And, I don't know what's next for Jordan. I just don't see him as an owner. I don't think he can handle this because he can't control it. And Mike always was able to control. And that's what you get back to this DNA, that these guys have their hands on it. I can control it. He can only be a puppeteer so much here with the Bobcats.
And I think I know he understands that and spoke about it in those terms. And I think that, look, there are levels of acceptance, of aging, of the things you've lost, of the things you can no longer do, of the things you could never do. And, I don't know what it means. I spent enough time with them where I don't think they were bluffing. They seem pretty confident in sort of having a plan in place that I don't think anyone had when he was helping run a team in Washington. And, we'll see. But if nothing else, they seem pretty confident in what their plan is and their ability to turn this around. Now, we all know there are 1,000 steps between here and there, but up close, there wasn't. I mean, they're sensitive to the criticism. I think thin-skinned is the word I heard used.
Yep.
And it's just because every organization, from a media company to whatever, reflects the boss. And so if the boss is thin-skinned, everyone's thin-skinned. But they seem very confident in the plan, and I was very surprised at how sort of on a micro level, hands-on involved he was.
Well, congrats on the article. It hits newsstands coming up later on this week. Thank you, Wright. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for your time, Dan.
All right, Wright Thompson from ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine.